Welcome back to the Psychology Behind This, the channel that gives you tidbits of psychology that are practical that you can actually use. And today we are going to talk about what would happen if you were to be able to look at potential partners that you might be dating as to whether or not they're going to work good for you in terms of compatibility for long-term relationships. These are the things that need to align or not align depending in your relationship to give you the best chance at having a good long-term intimate partnership. Okay, the very first thing we need to talk about is that we're under pressure. We're under pressure because when you're dating, your dating starts to look like this. You meet somebody, you think they're pretty cool, everybody gets in super aroused states during the honeymoon period, and things sort of level out and they become a little bit more homeostasis. It turns out that when we start to look at compatibility needs, they can be compromised and negotiated, but usually only during this honeymoon period. So we've got to get it done quick if we want to give ourselves the best opportunity to have great long-term intimate partnerships. Okay, so let's talk about what you might need in a relationship. The first thing that you always need is trust. You've got to have trust in a relationship. If you don't have trust, you don't have a relationship. I'm not really sure what you have, but it's not a relationship. I always tell my clients, if you're in a relationship and you don't trust your partner, it's okay to leave that relationship because it's not really a relationship, it's something else. Leaving is always harder than saying, hey, just do it. But trust, the first and very most important thing. The second thing is you need to get your needs met. And we all have different needs for different things. And a lot of times I hear, I'm a snowboarder, she's a skier, it'll never work. Or we both like the Packers, so it'll work. Or she's a Bears fan, I don't know how long I can stay with her. Or whatever it is that happens to be the thing that you're looking at in terms of compatibility. And I'm here to attest that I've seen many couples work through many, many different compatibility issues. But the ones that satisfy their basic needs are a lot harder unless you're negotiating in the beginning. So these are the 5 basic needs: survival, love and belonging, power, freedom, and fun. Let's talk about survival. Let's say that I meet a girl and she has a 401k and she owns her own house and she works really hard and she saves 15% of her income, and I live in a van down by the river, and I maybe missed a bunch of credit card payments for like 2 years because I didn't check my P.O. box and I was busy, and those needs might be cute in the beginning, but eventually as the relationship gets together and goes longer, those things will start to clash. So in this honeymoon period, I might utilize some sort of compromise that looks like this. Hey, I really like you. I could see us working really long term together. I'm a little worried about our survival needs. I live in this van down by the river, and although I really like my lifestyle, it seems to be vastly different than yours, which is really responsible in owning a home and having a 401k. So I'm wondering if we can make a compromise. If you'd be willing to not judge me for my spending habits and not having a 401k and not owning my own home, I'd be willing to maybe move out of the van and into a rental that has a full-time working hot shower. And if we could have that as a compromise, you can see that I'm making an effort and you're also making an effort, and maybe we can get this to work so that survival doesn't become a problem in our relationship. What do you think? Maybe you want to role play that with someone. Maybe I should have role played it before I did it, but that's the survival need. They need to align. The second need is love and belonging. And love and belonging actually looks like 2 different things. The first thing is love, how close we need to be to another person. The second thing is belonging. I'm a Rotarian. I don't know where they live, but we meet every Tuesday and it's great. Okay, if those needs are misaligned, she loves me. She wants to be with her all the time. She sits on the couch and reads books and watches crime TV, and I'm in a bowling league and I like to be a Rotarian and I want to shake hands and kiss babies. Maybe those needs become a clash later on. Again, here in the honeymoon phase, good time to negotiate that. Maybe something like, look, although we have these different needs for the reasons we just talked about, I want to make sure that you know how important this is to me. So I'm willing to take every Thursday and Friday night, and those will be our times, just us. Do whatever you want to do whatever date stuff that we want to do together, but not anybody else. We'll cut everybody else out. That'll be our bubble time, just the two of us. And the rest of the time, you can do separate partner activities where you can read your book and watch your shows, and I can go out and do my bowling league and be my Rotarian. Would that work? And here might be a good time to get that done. Power. Guys, this is the big one. This is the one that causes a lot more problems in relationships than almost anything. When you externally control another person, when you power over them, when you make their behavior change because of something that you've done, you're controlling them. And if their behavior changes, you've powered over them. And I believe it's violent anytime that you impose your will on another human. So power needs are important to look for when you first get in a relationship. If you're with a partner that has a really high need for power, they can look really great. They can be cutthroat in business and really successful and always on the move and have opinions that are really strong. And they can have a different way of playing card games and board games, and things on the television might upset them. And a lot of these are power situations, not all of them, but they can often be signs of someone that has a high need for power. And if you're with someone that has a high need for power and you also have a high need for power, things are not going to go well. I think about the Angelina Jolie's and the Brad Pitts, and I think maybe by the time those guys get to that level, they have they're so high need for power that'll never work. You would do a lot better for Brad Pitt to date his secretary, who is very doting and enjoys doing things for him. A high need for power needs to not align with another high need for power. It needs to be the opposite. A really low need for power. Even if Angelina Jolie had even a medium need for power, she's going to have a problem with Brad Pitt if he has a really high need. Should use Alec Baldwin and maybe Kim Basinger as an example. Okay, that's the power need. Very important that they misalign. Let me tell you a story. I was once taking a 40-hour cognitive behavioral therapy class, and it was taught by a double PhD who was pretty power-driven, it seemed. She had conflicts with Ivy League schools, and her brothers and sisters were all Ivy League, and there was a competition. There's things going on. She seemed very power-driven, very together, and taught a very good class. And on the lunch on the Friday before we were ending, I called her over during the lunch, and I said, Janet, I think you might have a high need for power. And she looked at me like, you're a therapist, you're an idiot. Of course I have a high need for power. Why don't you have a high need for power? I don't get it. And I said, you've been married for 15 years. How'd you get it done? And she said, he was the youngest of 5 kids and he never got his way. And now that we're married, he never gets his way and it works out just fine. And although that might give you a chuckle, it's actually pretty brilliant. If that guy even had a medium need for power, it's not going to go well. So power needs, very important to not align or be very aware of. The next need is the need for freedom. Freedom's a little weird need. I hardly see freedom people in my therapy practice because if there's a slight problem with a relationship with freedom people, they usually vanish. Things like, I know we have 2 kids and another on the way, but I'm leaving to go live in Texas. Might be something you'll hear a high need for freedom person say. The problem in relationships with high needs for freedom is that if you have a very high need for freedom and you meet somebody else and they don't also have a very high need for freedom, it's very hard to make relationships work because even being in a relationship feels like some sort of concession when you have a high need for freedom. Not a lot of them out there, but definitely high need for freedom people, not always in therapeutic situations because they moved to Texas. The last is fun. Look, fun and learning are the same thing. If you think about a child who used to play peekaboo, they giggle because they learn that you and them are different, and that might be the first time they realize that. So peekaboo's a great game for that. They giggle because it's fun, because learning and fun are the same thing. Hey, you know what? No big deal. You have a high need for learning. She doesn't. He doesn't. No big deal. They can stay in the car, play on their phone. you can go in the museum. If those two things are out of line, I don't think it's that big a deal. There's two more things that I think you ought to look at if you're looking into a relationship, and that is religion and children. If these things aren't aligned, that doesn't mean your relationship won't work long term. It just means it's going to be really difficult. If they're very religious and you're not, or you're not willing to join their religion, or you see religion differently, a lot of times that brings up the same sort of arousals that a physical fight will. And when people get in physical fights, a lot of times their body remembers and it doesn't want to cross. You have to be very delicate around the religious situations if that's your goal in a long-term relationship and those needs are different. The second thing is politics. Actually, it's not. I've met people that are staunch Republicans, staunch Democrats. They respect each other's boundaries. They live together. They do just fine. It's not politics. Politics can actually meld. It's possible. It's a lot easier than religion. The second one is actually children. Look, if you really want to have kids and they don't really want to have kids and you never have kids, you'll resent them. And if they wanted to have kids and you didn't, they'll resent you. And if you had kids and you didn't want them, you resent them. And all of a sudden there's a lot of things that go on. And so I think maybe if you could find someone aligned with your religion and your sort of dignity, your belonging needs, that's a different video, kind of, if we start talking about dignity. But if you could find someone aligned with your same needs and aligned with your same needs with children, that might be a little bit easier. Thanks for today, hanging out with me, and we will do maybe some mini videos on some of this other stuff. Please like and subscribe.